Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me add my words of welcome to our three distinguished guests. If my math is correct, we have three outstanding individuals who wear collectively 6 different hats. And although we're here today for a very specific discussion with 3 of those hats, clearly their other responsibilities, both individually and collectively, distinguishes their leadership as some of the best on the planet today. And gentlemen, thank you. And of course, as always, please carry back with you all of the chairman's, all of the members, greatest compliments to those brave men and women that you lead every day, meeting the challenges of securing freedom and democracy across the planet. We do have some votes coming up about 1:30, and as much as the chairman and I like to hear ourselves talk, we're really here to listen. More than that, but let me just make a couple of points. For those who are interested, they can read my full statement at their leisure. Let me start off with our discussions in recent days about the so-called Russia reset policy. And as the chairman noted, since the Georgia conflict, it has been a time of challenge for us, for our NATO allies, as to what EUCOM has called a, quote, reevaluation of the strategic environment, end quote, which includes a U.S. strategy for Russia and evaluation of U.S. force presence in Europe. And I'm sure we would all like to better understand how this engagement with Russia will affect EUCOM's strategic reevaluation. And I would just caution as we proceed toward discussions with Russia, and I fully support that, I would be greatly concerned that our rush toward what has been described as a grand bargain with Russia may unnecessarily, hopefully not, but unnecessarily risk the viability of the very security architecture that has kept the European continent peaceful for some 6 decades now. And the Russian misdeeds and provocations over the past year, as well as their planned security treaty with Europe, suggests the Kremlin, in my judgment, seeks to weaken NATO, marginalize U.S. influence in Europe, and gain a veto over European security affairs. And I think, as the chairman indicated, we need a focused eye on NATO, what I would call a NATO first policy, which would make clear to our allies in NATO that U.S. bilateral engagement with Russia will not foster collective insecurity amongst those very important partners. Let me note with regard to Admiral Keating and General Sharp, first of all, you've traveled great distances to be here. Thank you for that effort. And in terms of your responsibilities, let me note, as the chairman again noted earlier this month, the Chinese fishing vessels' aggressive harassment of the USNS Impeccable in the South China Sea should merit our most careful attention. Sadly, this isn't the first time we've seen China attempt to exert its sovereignty rights with very grave implications to U.S. military operations. The January 2000 ASAT test is another example. And at the end of 2008, China sent naval forces to the Gulf of Aden to protect its economic interests there, demonstrating what I think can be fairly described as a demonstrative shift in deploying military assets further away from China's territory and, of course, its territorial waters. And your gentleman's assessment of China's military objectives and the activities around the region and around the world as to how they affect U.S. policy and security interests would be greatly valued. Moving on, in testimony before the Senate last week, some of our witnesses expressed uncertainty as to whether North Korea plans to launch a communications satellite or test an offensive missile next month. The Taepodong-2 long-range missile could reach as far as Hawaii and Alaska, as well as impact our allies in the region. In my mind, this great uncertainty underscores the necessity for an effective operational missile defense system that places a priority on protecting the United States and our allies. And it seems to me this should also be a serious indicator that perhaps now is not the most effective time for the United States to make cuts to missile defense capabilities, as at least some reports have suggested may indeed happen. And in that regard, I'd appreciate both Admiral Keating and General Sharp any comments you might wish to make on our capabilities to shoot down a long-range missile should it become necessary. Lastly, terrorist activity in the region is an issue of great concern, and many of our allies in the region are impacted by transnational terrorism threats, including the Philippines, who are cooperating with U.S. forces to reduce the footprint of the Abu Sayyaf group, and in India, in which the recent Mumbai attack highlighted the continued presence of terrorist activity. And I know we're all interested in hearing how PACOM is cooperating with our allies in the region, as well as U.S. Central Command and U.S. Special Operations Command to address incidents of terrorism in South Asia. The chairman outlined a number of other initiatives that indeed merit our greatest attention. We look forward to your comments. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.